What's up, everybody? It's Austin, and today we're gonna be working on the Ranger a little bit more. Now,
ooh, look, rock.
we got the fuel pump put in, and you saw that in the last video. We got the quick disconnect fitting fixed up with a new O-ring. We were having issues with the vehicle starting, with the Ranger starting after its transplant, its 4.0 V6 transplant from the Mustang, the donor Mustang. And the issue was, well, I don't know. We unplugged the throttle positioning sensor, we unplugged the mass airflow, and we unplugged the idle air bypass solenoid. And some of them helped and some of them didn't. We plugged everything back in, we would try it, it would still do it, and sometimes it would run for longer times than others. I came out this morning, and I didn't bring you guys with because I didn't think it was going to run. And I put the key in, and it started. And I'll show you guys right now. We should be able to jump in, get the keys out of our pocket, hopefully. She runs really smooth right now. So let's go ahead and come back out here. We are missing at least one gasket from the Y pipe down to the single pipe on the exhaust, so still a little loud, but it was a great idea to get that Mustang engine, again, with those upgraded internals, well, re-engineered internals from the Mustang engines. But this thing's running great. New fuel pump is providing the perfect amount of pressure. I believe it's like 63 psi, and I love it. I love the sound. It sounds nice. Now, it ain't a V8, it's just a 6. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So, let's jump in here. In the cab, even with us missing that exhaust gasket, it still sounds pretty decent in my opinion. You should be able to hear that through the mic on this GoPro. So again, there was nothing had to be done. Here, we'll turn it off. And it starts up every time. It's been a long time. It has been a long time since this truck has been doing this good. And I am actually very excited. So, let's jump back out here real quick. Let's talk a little bit more about, again, the mysteries of the 2001 Ford Ranger. So the only thing I cleaned off camera was the throttle body and the idle bypass solenoid. Man, I promise I can speak. But those are the only two things I cleaned. I had taken the air filter out to see if maybe that was a restriction, and it's back in there now. So I don't understand why it wasn't running properly. One of my Instagram followers also had mentioned, you know, check the idle air bypass, check the mass airflow, and I had checked. I was like, I agree with you, 100%. We'll check and maybe replace those. Again, came out this morning, no issue. It started right up and ran perfectly. The idle was a little high, which was adjusted, but this truck just really needs a bath now, and to get a small few things squared away. But a bath, cleaning up the engine bay just a little bit back there on the edges. But other than that, it looks pretty clean. Well, in the engine bay, I should say. The truck is still very dirty. As you can tell, there is some fresh dirt. I was able to back it up a little bit. I didn't want to go too far because the brakes aren't really engaging like they should. We'll be bleeding the brakes on this truck, but I just wanted to give you guys an update on what was going on with that and the engine issue I was having. And again, it's just really, really weird. I guess the truck just needed a nap or something, just a full night's sleep. But she runs strong. Now I can't wait to make some more videos on this. We got a couple more things to do there. And I believe I'd mentioned that I was going to bring it to the auto spa. And if I was keeping the truck, I would definitely do that. But as I had mentioned, I will be selling this Ford Ranger. I wanted to make sure that it was still on the road, that I could do it. And it's going to happen. So, with all of that said, I'm going to be getting the back of this truck clean. I'm going to get the bed cleaned underneath. And we're just going to button up all the little things that need to be buttoned up. There's a couple things that need to be addressed when it comes to rubbing. We still have to fix the rust, which isn't going to be that hard. We do have the materials for that. And due to everything going on in the world, currently materials are a little bit harder to come by nowadays. But we got plenty of materials, and that's why we have a barn. Stuff just gets put there. So, with that said, we have plenty of materials to get this stuff fixed. So right now we are getting a couple little things buttoned up here on the front, getting the grill secured. Got my dad and grandfather up in the barn, and they're cutting out some metal to go right here in the frame. We'll be cutting this stuff. We'll be cutting this stuff off and welding in some more, and hopefully this thing will look nice and stock as soon as we're done with it. But we'll get that stuff cut off, and you'll see that right now. Alrighty, so we're up here at the barn, and we have some pieces of metal that were cut out by my dad and my grandfather to replace these corners right here, these edges. Gonna unbolt the battery from the terminal, or unbolt the terminal from the battery, and then we're gonna cut these up and weld on these new sections. Before we get cutting on the frame with the cutoff disc, always gotta make sure that we have a fire extinguisher nearby. Make sure that it's got stuff in it, that it's in the green, because we are over grass, and you never know. You don't want to burn the truck down. That's not the goal here. The goal is to fix it, put it back together, and, well, that's the goal. So we got the fire extinguisher over here. Still good and green. So let's go ahead and start cutting. Alrighty, so we got the old material cut off, the old part of the frame, and we're pretty much doubling the thickness of this. And we're going with a pretty heavy-duty piece of structural steel, and I really think that this is going to reinforce the back of this. And it's going to look pretty good, too. We were going to do a butt weld, but instead we're going to be doing a lap weld. That'll give us the ability to weld on both the inside and the outside. So let's get that welded up, and hopefully that'll fix our rusty back of the frame. All right, so before we start welding, I just want to make sure that you all know that I do have the battery disconnected. Important, so we do not cook the computer or any of the electronics in there. And again, we got this rusty section to do after this one, but man, this is a much more substantial piece going on now than what the rest of the frame has. So let's go ahead and start welding. I'm going to tack it up. We're going to double check the height from the bottom of the frame rail, and then we'll weld it up the rest of the way. I'm going to try my best, and if I can't do it, I'm going to have my dad help me, because he is way better at welding than I am. He's had a couple of years of experience. So let's go ahead and jump into that welding. So now that we got this tacked up here, it will allow us to adjust the distance that it needs to go up or down to make sure that we have it level all the way back. So let's go ahead and get that adjusted and then tack it up a couple more times, double check our measurements, and then weld it up the rest of the way. So I'm no welder by any means, but it's on there. So that's good. We're gonna get this cleaned up a little bit more, double check our measurements, and then we'll hopefully get this thing fully welded up. So for not being a welder, I feel like I didn't do too bad of a job, but it's definitely not perfect. They're not really big boogers, but I mean, it's always good to have a booger here and there, you know? I think it's gonna need, and I was told that it might need a secondary weld right up here. We're gonna try to fill this, but we'll get that squared away here in just a second. Get it? Square. But we'll get that squared away here in just a second. But it's not looking too bad for, you know, not being a welder. Not being a welder. It's not that bad. All right. Let's go ahead and try to get a couple more welds on here, and hopefully I can get the finished product shown to you here in just a moment. So we got one side welded up, and it doesn't look too bad. I definitely got quite a bit of boogerage down here, but it's still not that bad afterwards. And this thing, that ain't going nowhere. So we're gonna get the other side done, and I might actually challenge my dad to a little bit of a welding competition, see how well he can do on this side, and then we'll see. But I don't know, if he wins, I might have to buy him a beer or something. I don't know, we'll see if he wants to do it. If not, well, you'll see my booger welds again. So let's start jumping on that other side and hopefully get that knocked out before it gets too dark outside. Man, look at those. Man, I think I definitely owe you a beer at this point. Definitely a lot better than what I'm doing. And we're only halfway through it. Oh, man. Maybe after a quick flap disc, this will look a little bit better. Okay, so I might have to take the loss on this one. My welds don't look too bad, but when you come over here, yeah, they're definitely a little bit nicer, I would say. No, I'm not just trying to give my dad a pat on the back. He's got a little bit more experience than I do, so I'm just going to take the loss on this one. So we're going to get these welds flap disc down so that they're nice and smooth, smoother than what they are now at least. But we got all the rusty stuff taken off. Good thing I have my tetanus shot, because that wouldn't be nice handling those. But yeah, let's go ahead and get this flap disc down, and then tomorrow we'll get it painted, because we're losing a little bit of light. I don't know if you can see it, but there's the moon. Alrighty, let's go ahead and flap disc those down. So it's a new day, and a couple nights ago, we got this all welded up and grinded down. So everything looks good to go. It does need to get cleaned. We used some oil to lubricate the drill bit as we were drilling the hole through the metal. So we're gonna have to get this cleaned up, get the oil out of there. We're gonna use some degreasers, and we're gonna use some Dawn dish soap, because if it's good enough to take the grease off some little baby ducks and wildlife and stuff like that, I mean, why not, right? So let's go ahead and rinse off the bottom of this guy right here. And I have been noticing a couple problems with this pressure washer. Again, I've had it for years. My dad's had it for even more years. So let's go ahead and start pressure washing the bottom of this bed. Bottom of this is cleaned, we'll be able to get this put on the back of that truck. I do want to say that that dish brush did a great job of cleaning off most of the mud off the bottom of this mud flap. It's been sitting on there for over a year. Same with this one, looks nice. There's still a little bit of dirt shoved up in the plastic, but hey, it's a mud flap. There's going to be mud on it anyway. We're going to clean these off, get them painted, and then we're going to put the bed back on. So let's go ahead and get this cleaned up and get it all back together. Alright, so now let's go ahead and hit this thing with the foam cannon. Once that's done, we're going to let it dry, put some paint on these frame rails, and then we'll be good to go. So we got everything cleaned up back here on the frame, and it's looking pretty good actually. It's not super sunny outside. We actually have the dust storm coming through, so not a ton of sunlight, but it's still really hot. You can already see the plastic starting to dry up a little bit. So we're gonna let this dry. We're gonna take these clips back off on both sides, and we're gonna go ahead and paint these. We'll put a primer on them and then paint them. Then we'll put the bed back on, and then we will clean the rest of the truck. But this, everything on the back's looking pretty good. Alrighty, so these have been drying for a little bit. I got myself a sandable primer right here. It looks like it's either gray or black. Again, this is just to prime the surface. I don't want it to be bare metal. Alrighty, so we let it sit for a little while. We still got a little bit of water down here at the bottom of that frame rail. That's okay, we're not painting that. So let's go ahead and get some of this Walmart special on there. So now that we have the paint on there and it's drying, I'm gonna throw these clips on there. It's gonna mess up the paint a little bit, I believe. Oh, it did. It's okay, because what we're gonna do, as you can see there, it messed up the paint a little bit. But we're gonna do that to the other side, mess up the paint on this side a little bit. We'll go ahead and throw some paint on these. It might put a little bit of paint in the threads. That is actually not bad, in my opinion. The only reason I say that's not bad is specifically due to rattling. I mean, so again, throwing that paint in there, bolts shouldn't back out, should be perfectly fine. But we'll go ahead and let that dry. A little bit of extra paint for good measures. I think we should be fine. So yeah, let's go ahead and let that dry, and we'll go from there. We'll get that bed put on. It'll be super easy. At this point, it's just dropping it on and getting everything bolted back up like it should. So. So the bed didn't go on as easy as it came off, unfortunately, but it's back together. We just got to bolt down the bed bolts, or tighten them down at least, clean out the bed, and clean the rest of the truck. So that was the main objective today, was to get the frame rails fixed, to get the bed back on, and in the next video we are gonna clean this truck up. Unfortunately, it was not in the cards for me to go to the auto spa to get the truck clean. But unfortunately, I mean, that just means there's more hard work to do. We're gonna get this thing cleaned up, get all the old school stickers and decals and stuff off, get it cleaned, get it looking pretty, and hopefully it looks a lot better than it does. That will be in next video. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one.